As the Border Patrol's Data Science Division stood up this last year, one of the projects we took on was to enhance the missing migrant program. And so you understand what we're dealing with. I'm just going to try to depict. Right now, somewhere, there's a female in her early 20s. She came from Central America, Honduras, El Salvador, or Guatemala. She arrived in Reynosa, Mexico. She's trying to come to the United States. She wants to make a better life for herself and her family. She gets to Reynosa, and she has to employ a smuggler because cartels control every section of the border. In every section, they call a plaza. You can't cross through that plaza without paying the cartels. If you do, they'll kill you. So she makes the arrangements with the cartel. She pays half the money up front. They smuggle her across the border. They get her into McAllen, Texas. And at that point, they put her into a hotel or a stash house. Once she's committed to the cartel, she loses complete control of her life. She doesn't know what's going to happen to her, and she can't stop anything that happens to her. Many of these women are raped, they're abused multiple times, and they won't talk about it. While she's in McAllen, the cartel contacts her family. They want the second half of the payment. So if it's $3,000, it's be $1,500 up front. And then once they receive final payment, they'll start making the arrangements to get her to her final destination. So the way that usually looks from the Border Patrol standpoint is they'll then be transported out of McAllen and they'll start going north about 90 miles. When they get north, they'll start coming up on the Border Patrol checkpoints, and that presents a problem for them. So what they do there is they'll take the subjects out, and they'll put them on foot, and they'll put them with a guide. The guide is then charged with getting them around the Border Patrol checkpoint. And that's where these people are dying because it's hot. They're not conditioned for this type of travel. And when they get out there, they start walking, they dehydrate, they become delirious, and they start to fall behind. The guides have already been paid. They have to make delivery for the whole group. And usually the story unfolds something like this. They'll tell the rest of the group, we're going to leave her here. I've called someone. They're coming to get her. Let's go. And that's how they get them to leave family members and stuff behind because the family members don't know. They don't have any control over what's happening to them. And so they will relent and leave a loved one behind. The truth is the cartel's leaving them there. They have no intention of coming back for them. It's a lost cargo. They've already been paid. They don't really care. So with that, that's the problem that we decided to come in and try to help. I'm going to turn this over to Liz. She can tell you firsthand because she's the director of the program for RGV, and she came to us asking us for help.
Thank you, sir. So, good afternoon, everyone. Has any of you in this room heard of the Missing Migrant Program? Anybody? Okay. So the Missing Migrant Program, we focus on prevention of the loss of life amongst the migrant population traversing through the South Texas corridor. This complex objective is sought through our intense efforts and our relationships with foreign consulates, with local partnerships, state and federal, non-government organizations, and the community, forensic pathologists, and medical examiners. So the established process and the relationships seek to meet our four main objectives, which is prevention, location, identification, and reunification. And as Mr. Washburn painted the picture for you for these migrant population of what they go through the dangerous journey they decide to take, it's a concern for us. It is a huge concern. They make the decision to take this journey for various reasons. Some to get a better life, others because they haven't seen their family members in years. There's been times where you talk to these people and they say, hey, I was left when I was a baby, my mother went to get a better life, she educated me, now it's time to reunite. Others are running away from dangers, or they're just chasing this American dream. We can't blame them. They're coming. And they're placing themselves in the hands of these alien smuggling organizations, and they're getting treated as cargo. They're not treating them as human beings. 2 weeks ago, we recovered 3 babies. I'm a mother. And it just hit me straight, like right here into the heart, seeing these babies covered in the baby blankets, dead. The mothers were forced to leave their babies behind by the smugglers, and they couldn't carry them to at least to give them a proper burial. We dedicated all our rescue assets to go and find those babies, recover those bodies. Last week, I went to go identify an Ecuadorian national left behind. Probably got severely dehydrated, like Mr. Washburn says. They make them walk through this rigorous terrain. They're pushing them to their limit, and they're just falling. They're getting severely dehydrated. I have over 90 cases of serious illness called rhabdomyolysis. It's a serious dehydration illness. They're going to the hospital, they're coming out diabetic, and unfortunately, some don't make it, or some just stay out in the ranch land. So imagine acres, hundreds of acres, desolate area, nothing around you. So this is why we focus on our prevention objective. We achieved the 911 location marker project, and Hamid will show you what it's like. So the 911 location marker project, we implemented that last year in March. We started with 180 aluminum placards, handmade by Border Patrol agent. My Border Patrol agent that's part of my team came up with the idea. It was a huge concern. Hundreds of people lost and not being found. Hundreds of people that were recovering, and some of them we identify with the special technique that we have, but what about the others? Their family members never get to hear, never get that closure. So we started with the placards and a couple of landmarks that the Border Patrol agents from the field provided to us. But I knew we needed to do a community engagement. We needed to engage the community. And thank goodness they've been extremely supportive of this humanitarian effort. Major gas and electric companies gave us access to their infrastructure. Because if you're at the ranch lands, and these ranch lands, when you're walking, you could see electrical infrastructure, you could see gas pipelines. That's what the smugglers guide. They guide themselves by that. If it has a number and you're able to read me a number, I have that on a map. So we're their only hope, we're the only chance of them surviving. But I also needed to enhance my communication between my rescue assets. My map wasn't allowing me to do that. I didn't have an interactive map. I needed an interactive map where all my rescue assets were able to see the call live simultaneously. Why? Because I needed them to prioritize and send the right resources so we can rescue this migrant. The field also asked, can we verify the location of the distressed migrant? The map allows us now to see that. And why do I have this map? It's because I reached out to Hamid and to Mr. Washburn. When I picked up the phone, I called them and I asked them, I need your help. I need your help so we could continue rescuing these people that are out there, and it's a vulnerable population. And the smugglers are taking advantage of their needs. They're taking advantage of their desperate needs. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Dane, and he's gonna explain to you how he enhanced my map. But before I do that, I do wanna thank 3 people here in this room, because without them, I wouldn't be where I'm at, my project wouldn't be where it's at. First of all, Mr. Javier Rodriguez, he is the assistant patrol agent over the Missing Migrant program. He is my boss, and he supports all the crazy requests that I always make. Paul, our cartographer from the sector, Paul, thank you, because you never said no. You never said you were too busy. You never said, hey, I can't do it. He was supporting us from the start. And Chad, thank you so much. Thank you so much for traveling to DC, and I know it takes time away from your family, but you did it, so thank you.
Okay, just like Liz just explained to everybody, I just want to back up one more second. I'm from headquarters, and so is Rodney here. Liz is really representing the field. The biggest thing that we wanted to do is to be able to enable the field and help them with their own dynamic reality that's different from sector to sector to sector. It's easy to sit at headquarters and look over and decide, hey, devise some sort of standardized sharing mechanism for all of the Border Patrol. It's different to reach out to the field and design something that captures that dynamic realism that's in their own AOR. The main issue that Liz had out in RGV was they didn't have a way that would capture that dynamic reality that they lived in with this missing migrant program and be able to share that. Obviously, we love Esri, we're here. I'm not getting paid to say that. But the mechanism we have here, the platform we have, the enterprise license agreement we have throughout all of Department of Homeland Security allows us to be able to share data that, like in Liz's case, to the people that need it in real time. She wasn't able to do that there at the sector, and the way they were doing it before she called us was a mechanism to do this. They had all of these locations. There was 22,000 geospatial locations that they had gone out over the several years and have used the GPS to find out where they were in time and space. And they had an access database. When a 911 call came in, they had to try to surf through queries or whatever through the access database and find out where that point was. Then when they did that, they had to pick up the phone and call the responder and tell them where they believed that location was. They couldn't see it visually. They had no data visualizations. They had nothing like that. They just had to call them, and it was kind of like their best guess. If they had a coordinate, then the first responder still had to punch in the coordinates into some handheld device and still go try to make the rescue attempt. So when she called us, what we were able to provide was some mechanisms to share that information and to be able to share it in real time with the first responders that they had. And because this is an enterprise license and we use Esri's portal application, when the agents now, when the workflow comes in and a 911 call comes in, instead of accessing an access database, they're able to use some of these geoforms and put the information in and then be able to push to the portal application, which I see everyone talking about and discussing and showing the great work that everyone's doing. And everybody that's in CBP has access to this right now. Everyone in Customs and Border Protection has access to this Esri portal application. They can see these rescue locations as soon as they enter in the operational center in RGV. Once they see that, then they can effect an arrest at that time. So that was one of the deliverables that she asked us to produce for her was that. So we gave them a way to visualize this in real time, in time and space, and push that to the people that needed to effect the arrest. We gave her 4 things in total. The first one being the ability to visualize these in real time and space. What you're seeing up here on these slideshows are static images of it, but what you're seeing is one of the deliverables we gave them was the ability to be able to brief this to her command or anyone else if they have access to the CBP intranet. So what you're seeing here is actually one of the storyboards within the Esri's portal suite of applications that allow us to show our story, tell our story in a much more dynamic way than PowerPoint. So, excuse me? Say that again? This slide.
We're not seeing the map.
I'm sorry, I'm getting to that. All I'm saying is this application framework that you're seeing here, this dashboard was one of the producibles that we gave. So it's apart from the actual missing migrant program, the other part that we're able to give them is that they can brief this to their command that I'm walking everyone through now, anywhere within the Border Patrol. It was just one of the other perks within the Esri portal application to do the storyboard and able to now allow them. It was a deliverable that came superfluous to what we were doing. I took out, obviously, a lot of this information. And the reason I say that, I described that deliverable for this application is for this right here. I masked and I took away all of this for obvious reasons. These are the actual death locations out there in Rio Grande Valley, some of them. And this is for internal consumption. So the reason I said that we had this deliverable was for this as well. Some of this is masked because they need to be able to deliver this to their command and staff. So this is just part of one of the deliverables we gave them. That's why most of this information is not here available. This is a geoform. I know a lot of people are familiar with the geoforms. This was the form that allowed the RGV, sorry. I'm so, you know what? I used to be such a huge proponent against people saying acronyms. Rio Grande Valley Sector is one of the sectors within the Border Patrol where Liz works from that we supported. In Rio Grande Valley Sector, their operational center now, we provide them a geoform here. They capture all the information that comes from either the 911 call system, a concerned relative, or anybody that's concerned about someone being lost out in their enormous area of operations. It's very desolate where we work in the Border Patrol. A lot of times agents are by themselves, and the closest support is an hour away or more. So these areas are vast. Once the operational center fills this form in, like I said, and they enter it, it goes directly into the map, into the portal, so the first responders can see. These are where the points pop up. They have the green and the red points, and I won't get into the nuances of those. They have some other background information that they needed, and that's why the points are different colored. But they're able to see these in time and space. We added a lot of the different widgets at the bottom that, through the Esri portal product, that allows them to use to kind of help them find where these events are conceptually. Because sometimes a 911 call comes in, and they don't know where they are in time and space. So like Liz was explaining, they would ask them what they see. So a border patrol has to ask them, can you look around? What do you see? Do you see a windmill? Do you see this? So if we do not get coordinates from the 911 call center, then they try to use some of these widgets down here at the bottom, and these are all within the Esri portal system itself. These are just some of the customizable widgets. They're just there to help us kind of find out where they are. Whether it be a distance measuring tool, and I won't go through, obviously, the widgets. The context of this is more important than these widgets. The deliverables that we were able to give Rio Grande Valley. The biggest function they needed was, the reason I captured this screenshot is this drop down at the top left up there. There's a drop down box that comes down. They coded these 22,000 geospatial locations. And so instead of their access database, it got converted into this. It is, once they plug in one of the numerical markers in the search box, it drops down. They can click one of these. If they have the entire unique ID number on some of these objects, whether it be a windmill, whether it be a placard, then they hit this and it tells them exactly where it is on the map. So that was one of their requirements that they needed to do. They needed to be able to search what was in that database visually very quickly. Okay, now for the boring part. Some of you are probably familiar with this. This is modeling within the ArcGIS desktop software. What's important about this isn't the fact that it looks like I'm smart, okay? Because I'm not. What's important about this is that this modeling software within ArcGIS portal allows us to capture something unique. It allows us to capture the user and the operator's perspective, their dynamic reality. So without walking through that complicated mess, it's just, the point of this is to know that the blue circles there on your left, my right, or vice versa on this side, these are the different variables that affect their dynamic reality. Whether it be dense land cover, whether it be the location of prior deaths or prior rescues. The last deliverable that we gave Rio Grande Valley was this: the ability to use a suitability model to find out the most optimal location in their AOR, in their area of operations, to place their limited resources, in this case being a placard or a beacon. They don't have very many. This tells them where they really need to go to have the most impact on saving lives. And I can't stress that enough. The ability to capture their instincts and their experience in these variables. Because at headquarters level, it's difficult for us to understand those nuances. And we can provide this to them, and then when they turn the dials and they change the weights, then it can tell them in time and space This is a small subportion of the Rio Grande Valley area in South Texas. The only thing I want to bring your attention to is the light green color there in the top left-hand side there. It's one of the regions, one of the tools within the ArcGIS Pro desktop version. It looks at the entire area. It takes their insight into consideration, their operational experience, and it tells them where they should put these placards in this vast area to make the most impact to save lives. They can weight the variables as seasons change, as variables change, as the reality changes, and that location will change. Within that location, we can use other tools within ArcGIS Suite. We can use location allocation, some other ones. I don't want to bore you with some of those other ones. I'm sure some of you very well of how they function. But it can tell you exactly within there. If you only had 5 placards to put somewhere, that's all you could afford within your resources. Where in their area should those 5 go? And it tells them. They can monitor the results from that and make changes accordingly. But that was really the biggest point that I wanted to message being up here on the technical side, which, like I said, is not the most fun part. But it allows us to tie their experience and their experiences and their instinct with all the empirical quantitative data that means something to them as operators on the ground. I know I'm over time. I apologize. I'll shoot it over to my boss, Chief Washburn, for any final comments. It's all yours, Chief.
All right, so we're good. Do you want to do questions or?
One question. It's such an impressive program. I would like to see if there is a question from the audience, please. Does anyone have a question? Yeah, we have one over here on the back.
So in this, it's called 911 for this. So I'm assuming this data, all the placard data and everything, is all that shared with the local PSAPs?
That's coming.
We do share this information with our 911 operations, the center, sir. They do not have access to the map, but we do share the locations with them with shape files.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
And if I can just add to that real quick, that's a great question. And I didn't explain this in the beginning. This project was part of the CBP Commissioners, the Customs Border Protection Commissioners Data Analytics Pilot. The window to do this was 3 months or less. With the help of all the talent that's in the Border Patrol and the agents that can do this already because they have this, they were able to finish this within, I think, a couple of weeks. So because this is a very fast, aggressive agenda, that was one of the obstacles that we brought up. However, it was not in the scope of the small time frame that we had, but there is discussions to be able to get that enabled within the PSAP system.
Great. Thank you very much. I think you'll agree that was a very compassionate and caring program. And I think that came out from all of you, particularly from Liz, how much the Border Patrol care about this program and how much effort they're putting back into this. And personally, on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you for your service and thank you for what you're doing. Please join me in thanking them. Small token of our thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.